Filmora is one of the most beginner-friendly video editing apps out there, and it's really easy to get started editing your first video with Filmora. And in their most recent update, they also added a lot of new AI options to really speed up and make editing much easier. And I've been editing for over 15 years, and I've used a ton of different editing apps, and I think this is one of the most beginner-friendly editing apps out there. And this video is going to be a very step-by-step process on exactly how to get started with your first edit all the way to finishing and exporting it. The first thing you need to do is you need to download the Filmora app. So I'm using a Mac. This works for Windows PC. They do have mobile apps and it's multi-platform, meaning you could edit across different platforms. But I recommend using the computer version for this. That's usually where most people do their editing, is on a computer. The mobile apps are still not quite there yet for what I'm about to show you. So we're going to get started for free, and I'll link this website in the description. You could click that and get it. And when it comes to pricing, we're going to get started for free, but at the very end, that's going to have a little watermark. That's going to be probably something we want to remove. So they do have different plans here that you could pay. So this is like a quarterly plan. They do change these from time to time, or you could just get the annual membership. So we'll worry about that later. We're going to just use the free version with the watermark just to show you the whole editing process. And if you decide it's a good fit after you learn how to use it, then you could get the subscription plan from Filmora. And when you first install Filmora, you're going to land on this page here. And if you get a starter guide, just press X here. There'll be a little X here to exit the starter guide, because it walks you through a simple step-by-step process. But I'm going to show you a much better, more detailed way in this video. So press X, then you're going to have control on this page. Right here, new project is where we're going to go ahead and get started. But this aspect ratio is something you may want to change right now. So 16:9 is what it's set to by default. That's a traditional YouTube type video or TV size. The 9:16, that's your portrait format. So if you're going on YouTube Shorts, TikTok, that's what you want to choose. So you have to decide where you want to go with the video first and then choose it from here. I'm going to start with 16:9. We could change this later too. And then we're going to press new project. And all the different AI modes are also available here. So you could explore these on your own. Some of them I'm gonna show you within our project, but these are available over here. So let's go ahead and start there. Okay, first let me show you exactly what you're looking at for a second, and then we'll start the actual step one, which is importing media. Over here, you have a panel right here where you could drag any video clips, any photos, images, any audio. It's going to appear over here, and these are the things that you're going to use in your video. I'm going to show you this in a second. The official step one, once you create a project, is importing media. So we'll go through that. Over on this side is going to be the preview window. So basically, this is a video player. So I don't have anything, so it's black right now, but I'll show you how that works. And the actual editing takes place down here on what's called a timeline. So right now, again, this is blank, but I'll show you what ends up happening over here. And then this right panel here changes depending on what page or what you're doing. So right now it's just showing project info. Let's go to step one, which is importing media. To import media, you could either click here or drag everything. So let me show you how I organize things. So I have a folder on my project right here. I just made a folder called sample footage. So everything in your project, depending on which project you're working on, you want to organize it into one folder, or even organize it more to have video and images and audio as separate folders within that folder. Then what I have here is, so for example, this is a JPEG. This is a photograph. This one is a video. So if I click play on here, this is a little video I have. And then I have a little audio file, and I could have animations. I think this one's a little animation I have. So all I have to do is select all these and then bring them into here. So you could select just about any type of media file you have. Then it's going to ask if I want to create proxies sometimes. This is if you have a really slow computer. It basically creates these little offline files. Again, a little too advanced for this beginner tutorial, so just say no here. And there you go. You have your different files. As you can see, when there's a music file, like this one is a music track I'm going to use, it has this little icon. All these are stock footage here I've downloaded from a website. And then everything else here are things that I shot on this submarine. So I'm telling a story here, this World War II story here of the submarine. So These are the ones I shot on my iPhone and I dropped them with airdropped onto my computer. Now, if you don't have your own media, by the way, there's also the stock media library. So if I want footage of a ship, for example, I could go ahead and do a little bit of search. And then with these, if you do want to use these, you could go ahead and import these to your project as well. And let's go ahead and start our editing, which is our step 2, basic editing. So what we need to do is drag things down here from up here. So I'm going to take this clip. Let's say I want this clip to start my story. I'm going to grab it and put it over here. And it's going to give you this pop-up to basically make sure that what's down here matches however the media was created. So again, this is a little more advanced, but you could just press, usually match to media is what you want to press to match the settings of your edit to the media. And now you could see everything. So let me just go to the beginning. So here's your preview window now. If I press spacebar, it's showing that clip here that I took on my iPhone. And as you could see, a bunch of different things changed. Now I have a brand new panel here on the right side. That's gonna let me do more customization. Again, I'll cover some of this in this video. And over here is this red line is exactly where I'm at within the clip. So that's the preview. So if I go to the end, it should cut to black because there's nothing when this clip ends. This is a 6-second clip, okay? So typically for your basic editing, you want to just bring clips in back to back, okay? So this is the next clip that I want to cut to, and you could see it snaps onto the previous clip and leaves no gap in between. So it goes from one clip to the next clip. If they had a little separation like this, it will show black in your final video. So every time there is no actual footage, it just shows a little black area. That's not what we want. So I'm going to bring this back, and it's going to go from here to here. And what's the next one? Is this one. We'll take this one down, and you start to get the idea here. You just basically want to tell your story with the different clips. Then I'm going to show you how to make the edits. Okay, now before we start editing these down, because some of these are going to be too long, they're not going to start at the right place. If it's you talking, you might not had said the right thing or made a mistake. I'm going to show you basic editing in this step 2. But assembly is really the first step into start telling your story, so the clips go one after another. In the future, if you decide to change the order of clips, just select them. You see how it's highlighted, and just grab it over here and put it at the end. And it created this black space here, so you could select multiple clips like this together and close that black space. You basically don't want any black space between your different clips, right? You just want them to go from one shot to another shot, and then grab this red thing here to preview on top what you're looking at. A few other useful options here. You'll have a whole new menu here where you could shrink this down. So as this gets more crowded, you may want to shrink this down to see your whole project down here. Or if it's small like this, just make sure I increase the size here. And then on top of that, let me decrease it a little bit more. You could see the time. So over here is showing that if I take this all the way to the end, you could see this is about 27 seconds, right? So this is 25 seconds, this is 10 seconds. So this is gonna come in handy to see how long your project is, just having the time up here. It starts at 0. Now let's do some basic editing. So I showed you assembly, rearranging by just selecting and moving things around, and like selecting things like this and moving things around. I'm gonna just bring this one back. So this is basic reordering of clips, but a lot of times you wanna make a clip a little bit shorter. So if it's a clip like this one, let me increase the size. You could just grab the end of it and bring it down. So this cuts out that end part. And if you want to cut out the beginning, again, bring it in like this. So now our clip is a little shorter. When you do that, it automatically moves it back, so you don't have to manually move it back to close that little gap. Same thing, I could go ahead and shrink this one down or change the beginning of it, right? And it's gonna snap to the previous. So now my video, if I take this red, this is your indicator, it's called. It goes from here and it goes to there. Okay, so it's good. Actually, I wanna start it this way, okay? Then sometimes you wanna edit something from the middle of a clip, right? A lot of times, especially if I'm doing this kind of video where I'm talking, I may make a mistake. So what you do is, I'm gonna bring this one down. I could cut something from the very middle of this. So to do that, I'll come over here. Let's say I wanna cut from this point on, but I wanna keep the beginning, right? You have all these tools, but the one I need over here is this scissors icon. If I click it, it creates a little cut right here. I'll go a little bit further and I'll click the scissors icon one more time. And now I have this middle part, and if I select it and delete it, it's going to delete that part. Let's say that's a part where I said something that I shouldn't have, or I made a mistake. I just cut it out like that, right? So now it's going to go from here to here. And if I want to fit something in between these two, I'll just drag this one out. I'll bring in, let's say this one I haven't used. I'll bring that in, and then I'll close the gap, right? There we go. So now I'm telling my edit this way, and it goes back to this one. That's basic editing, right? Trimming the beginning, ending, telling your story with each clip, and then taking out any mistake from the middle part. So that brings us to the next step, which is actually adding what's called B-roll, or things to a second video track. Let me explain how that works. So right here, if you look on the left side, we just have one video track, and this has this green section, which is the audio from those clips. And then we're going to have another track, the audio track underneath, which I'll explain in the audio section. But if we want to add a secondary video clip, usually when someone is talking like I am, and I'm using additional footage on top of that, that's called B-roll. It's a very important part of editing and storytelling. In this case, I want to use this map, for example. So if I grab this, I could put it, you see, now it's not on the first track. That will overwrite what's there. I want to put it on the second track. So this is what's going to happen. It's going to go from this to this. And then when this is done, it's going to come back to my first track. And I could, again, just like every other editing basics, make any adjustments. So I could, again, make this a little bit shorter. So it ends over here maybe, right? So then it'll go from this to that and then to my regular track. So imagine if the first track was someone talking, whatever they're talking about could go on the second track, and then you could come back to them, and you could keep doing this, right? You could add another thing to the second track and tell your story that way. So your second track becomes your B-roll track. And sometimes you'll see your footage doesn't quite match. So if you select your footage, you have a bunch of options over here on this panel called transform. So you could actually go ahead and make things a little bit bigger, right? So if you want a picture by picture effect like this, you could go ahead and do this kind of thing. And this lets you kind of move things left and right and up and down. Or if you just want to make it full screen, just go ahead and stretch it out here and even zoom into a footage. Okay, so that makes it a little bit better for what I'm using it for. So this transform panel is very useful for being able to resize footage and make them fit your screen over here. And I do want to show you this other website here. This is Inviz Elements. I'll link this below as well. But that footage and all the animations I showed you, I got them under the stock video tab. So Filmora has some. Inviz Elements is one of the biggest libraries in the world. This is another paid subscription though, but to take my B-roll to the next level, I've been using this for many, many years under the stock video tab. And they also have music, so royalty-free music, because you have to have permission, copyright protection here when you get music from online. You can't just use any music and post it on YouTube, for example. And this gives you royalty-free music. So anywhere you look, you basically want royalty-free music. Again, Filmora has some. This has a whole lot more. So when you decide to take your editing to the next level, I do recommend Inviz Elements because this gives you all-in-one to all creative assets. So you'll get your stock videos here. They have graphics, sound effects, music, everything. Basically everything I want. The photos that I'm using in that image all came from here. Okay, that brings us to step 4, which is actually working with the audio and adding music. Okay, that could be a couple of different steps, but I'll kind of combine them here to make this a little bit shorter. So working with audio, if you come over here, let me come to the beginning of this track. You see how there is a green track underneath one? It has these little lines. This is your audio track down here. So if you right click on any clip like this, you're gonna get this huge menu of different things, but a lot of times you wanna detach the audio. So if I detach the audio, you see how it's put the audio from this clip onto its own track? So I could just now delete it and the video clip doesn't get deleted, only the audio, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and undo that. So you do have this little arrow right here that undoes your steps, and this one does a redo. If you select this one and you wanna get rid of the audio and press delete, you get rid of the video too. That's not what we want. That's why I like to detach it. Once it's detached, you see how when I click on it, like if this was someone talking, you see how I have all these new audio settings on the right side? So this is how you could decrease the volume if you don't want anything at all. In this case, maybe I don't want any sound. I want the music actually to be what's going to dominate this track, which I'll add in a second. So I'll take it all the way to 0, and I could do the same with these other ones. And there's a bunch of AI stuff like AI speech enhancer. If you turn this on and someone is talking, it's going to basically denoise it. It's going to remove any kind of background noise or wind noise here if you turn that on. You could also, let me show you, if you detach the audio, there's this line as well. So this line over here could decrease the volume. So if you go to infinity, that means you can't hear at all. And then around 50 or so, you start hearing it. And usually audio is somewhere between like 0 and -6, something like that, if someone is talking. And you have track control too. So if you want to mute the entire track, you could see that's how you mute the entire track, and you won't hear anything on that track if you don't want to individually make any adjustments to anything. Okay, now adding music. So this one is from Inviz Elements. I added this track. Okay, let me go ahead and pause it so you could hear a little preview. But all I have to do is grab it and put it on a new track. So this second track, this works like the video track, right? 1, 2, that's the video. You see it has a video icon. Now audio, my first track is anything from the clips that I could mute. And then my second track here is going to be the music track. And maybe I could have a third track for voiceover or someone talking. I'm going to decrease the volume here. So for music, you don't want it to be at 0 if there is someone talking. Since I'm going to add someone talking here, I'm going to decrease it to like -25. -25 dB, -30 dB, that's typically where you want your music to be. If it's background music, if it's not background music, if it's a full music video, basically, you just keep it at 0. So your volume, again, see, this is where it says that if you don't want to use the line. Okay, so let me just go ahead and show you a little preview. Okay, so you get the idea. Now this needs a little bit of voiceover narration here to tell a more complete story. So I'll show you that right now as well. This little icon right here, if you click it, it says record voiceover. Then here, make sure you have a good quality microphone like the one I'm using for this video. It's actually not connected to this computer, so I can't choose it here. So it's not going to sound good at all if I press record. I want to record with a professional quality microphone with a USB. I'll link one in the description if you want to pick one up from Amazon, and that'll connect to your computer and it'll show up over here as one of the sources. And that will become your third track, for example, if you do voiceover. If you're talking on camera, again, that probably becomes your first track or is part of your video track here that you can mute and play around with the volume. But that should cover the basics of audio and music mixing and editing. Now let's go to step number 5, which up here, remember, we're kind of going in order. So we imported media and stock, we added audio. Now let's go ahead and look at this title screen here, because with titles, you have a bunch of different options like adding different text, and this has a bunch of different templates. So that has a trending tab here, but we have just plain text. If you just want to use plain text, or we have 3D titles. All these could be just added by grabbing them and just adding them like this as another video track, and it's going to download it from the internet here. And there you go. So now if I just press play, look what happens, right? So this overlays on top of your existing video, right? And then to edit it, basically this is editable right here on the right side. Remember, every time you do anything different, this whole right panel changes. So this would be World War II story. You could type that in. You have a bunch of presets. You could go ahead and change the size of it if you want to make it smaller, bigger. All kinds of different options available with these. And if you didn't want this 3D one or it doesn't look good, there's some YouTube selected options here. You could select one of these. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, this looks a little bit different, and it has a bunch of different boxes, right? So you could see this has 3 different boxes I could edit, like down here, up here, and in the middle. And same thing with these titles. You could actually make them shorter here by making the same edit adjustments that we've looked at in the past. So next is our transitions. That's our next step. And with transitions, basically every time a clip ends and a new clip starts, the thing that happens in between that is the transition. When there's no transition at all, this is just called a cut. So it cuts from this scene to this scene. Very usual in movies, but sometimes in online videos, you do want more of a transition. So this transition tab gives you a whole bunch, but typically I just use the basic transitions here. So dissolve is the most common transition ever, probably. So you grab it and you put it between these two clips. You see how it lays between these two clips? And let me show you what it looks like. If I go here and press play, that's what a dissolve is. Now that's far too long, so you could shrink that dissolve down. You see how it's making it shorter now? So dissolve from this to that. Let me delete this dissolve, and then you also have fade. So fade is another common transition. I'll apply it between these two again. Let me make it shorter. Let's go ahead and press play. Okay, so that faded to black. You could have a flash, fade to white. Again, I recommend usually you stick with the basics or the zooms or the popular and not really over the top things. The speed blur is kind of cool too. So do play around. They have a ton of different categories here, but some of them could get a little bit carried away with how over the top they are. So it depends on the type of story that you want to tell. This is where the creativity of the editing comes into play with transitions. After transitions, we have the effects tab. That's our next step. So effects is what happens to the clip itself, not what happens in between clips. So there's a bunch of them here again under the effects tab. Let me go to video effects and let's see. We have basics, right? So this is just auto enhances. So let me go ahead and drag this one and drop it right on top of the clip. Actually, this one doesn't show, it was very subtle. Let me show you glow because this was gonna be a lot more easy to see. So you see the difference there? So now my clip has this little glow effect to it. And there's a bunch of different ones here. So shattered glass, you just drag it, dump it on top of that, and there you go. And with each one, it stays. So if you add another one, it's gonna keep the one previous to that one. So make sure you undo that if you don't wanna add that. Ton of them available. So some of these shakes or glitches could be really interesting. So usually think of effects as kind of filters, and alongside that, there's also stickers too. You could add those to a different track like this, and they'll show up on top of your video. And remember, we have the scaling section where you probably want to shrink this down or want to grab it and bring it over here, or use this position filter here to move it, right? Maybe you want to add that down here. In this case, I'm going to delete that. Now, when I select the clip over here, we also have a ton of different tabs. So it's worth kind of exploring. This gets a little bit more advanced, but you could change the color of something. This is a whole color correction panel. I'll just hover over here just to show you. This basically could make things cooler or warmer, or you could just totally make things more vibrant and make the colors pop with vibrance. And you have all these different presets to just choose that, and it'll choose the color for you. So this whole color correction is useful. So let's say we're done with this project. So this is all I got right now. It's 37 seconds long. Let's go ahead and save this here to be shared out of this project. So before I export it, I want to go to File, and I want to go ahead and save project. Okay, so you could save project as for the first time and give it a title. So this is the World War II story, and make sure we save the project in this folder. This is one of the steps in the process. You could do this early on. You could do this before you export the project. Saving it doesn't give you the video file, but it lets you come back to this projects folder. So I'm going to save it over here to this projects folder. Then it's always going to be on the home page of my Filmora account. Now I'm going to go to export. This is the last step. Okay, go to export up here. And now you finally have to actually create yourself a Filmora account. So let me go ahead and do that and then log in and come back. And once you log in, it's going to bring you to the exports panel. So this is where we're going to decide all these different settings. So let me show you. So local, it means it's going to download it to my computer or export it to my computer. That's usually what I do. And then I open up YouTube or TikTok or wherever I want to post. You can choose those options here and log in directly and post to those platforms directly too. So you can see TikTok and YouTube are the most common here, or Vimeo. In this case, I'm going to do local name. It has a little AI option too to write the name for you based on using a text prompt. Again, they are really heavy on using these AI tools, which is really cool. Where it saves to, this is where you decide what folder, my movies folder in this case. Preset, match to project settings, that's usually right. Format, MP4 is almost always right. That's the most common video format online. Then it's going to say recommended. Yes, this is 1080p, so 1920 by 1080, that's HD footage. And then the frame rate, this is going to, again, choose it from your project. Mine was shot on 50 frames. Most of the times it's shot on 2997 or 24. Those are common. But again, you could just not worry about this. This is going to do a good job selecting from what your footage was. Go ahead and just export from here. And then here, if you don't want the watermark, which you most likely don't want to, you need to go ahead and purchase here. And if you don't mind it, you could export with the watermark And then you could always come back and purchase and it'll remove that watermark. But you can see that's probably not good if you're going on YouTube or TikTok. You probably want to pay. But this is one of the most affordable editing platforms. Their subscription price is cheaper than most of them out there. So I think it's worth the price for everything I showed you. And there you go. It's exported. So if you open that folder, there it is. This is your video file here. And then you could take it from here and post it online. Again, all the resources, including this whole 10-step process of editing, is included in text format underneath the video description. So make sure you check that out. Hope you found it useful. I'll see you next time.